It's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank the Coverage in 2023.
Hey, I mean, that was a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back.
Buck, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Hey, let's talk some football. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett, intern Noe, Grandeur Pest Solutions, OutDrank the Coverage, right here on L4 Media. As intern Noe and I come into the video, before we begin, intern Noe, what are you doing? What are you drinking? Are you going to hell for the shows that you watched this weekend? Just saying. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. To answer your last question, no. And we will not talk about that show. And to answer your second question, I'm doing Four Roses again. I have another recipe I got from Kentucky. It's the OESO. It's more of a sweeter. It has less rye in it, about 20% rye instead of the 35% I had last week.
That.
I will save some
Yes.
for you in 2 weeks when we watch the Super Bowl together. This is my more preferred Four Roses between the two bottles that I've had. So yeah, it's like rich, fruity, dark brown sugar. It's really good. I like it. And it's a single barrel, and it's about 55% alcohol. Definitely a sipper. So how about you, buddy? How are you doing? What are you drinking?
Oh, first off, I just want to say that the description of that drink is smile like you, dark and fruity. I'm doing well, as you can tell. I'm a little punch drunk. Was on the road this weekend. Got back yesterday in time for the games. Might have had me a little sip and nip last night during the San Francisco-Detroit game. I'm drinking some old school Dr. Pepper and your favorite Malibu rum. Just a little, literally a splash of rum just to count this as it's a drink, because I've got other stuff to do today, but I'm doing great. I will say this, great games yesterday. You had everything that you want in your conference title games. You had some drama. You had, with like the Ravens, the frustration continue with the Lions. Dan Campbell's style comes back to bite him. We're going to, of course, talk all about that today on this show, OutDrank the Coverage. But we do want to remind everybody, if you don't know, there's a week in between Super Bowls. We still will have a show next week. Well, in fact, technically have two. We'll have our Pure On Super Bowl preview. That's going to be a fun one. We're going to do videos and everything on that. And then we're also going to do we were going to do this the week it all happened, but we kind of wanted to see how everything would fall out. But we're going to kind of do just a show on the impact of Nick Saban, Pete Carroll, and Bill Belichick on football. not just at their head coaching, but I've been doing some deep dives on their stuff because I've told you this before. I have a book that's literally about Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs, and Bill Parcells, and kind of how they took on the Cowboys of the early 80s and kind of saw what Dallas was doing and basically said, hey, we've got to beat them. That's how we beat everybody else. And it's just a fascinating book. And Bill Belichick's in that book a lot. And just anyway, we're going to have some fun with those. So I just wanted to let all y'all know that. And of course, starting in February, maybe March, depends because February is just one of those weird busy months for me. But we're going to be having our all-season shows. And we're proud to announce that one of our all-season shows is going to be a spinoff into a new show. But for the first episode, it's going to be, and it might stay the name, OutDrank The Coverage, Bad Movies and a Drink. Now, this is a show you and I have been planning probably longer than we've even been doing this show. But something came out last week that just tickled my heart and other spots. And that is the brand new, didn't see this one coming, Roadhouse remake with Jake Gyllenhaal coming out with Conor McGregor. I ain't going to lie. If it keeps the tone of the trailer, I think it's going to be a fun movie. So what we're going to do with Bad Drink in the movie, the first episode, is we're going to compare and contrast those two movies because you and I, we have a love affair for Patrick Swayze and Roadhouse.
Yeah, I cannot wait. It comes out in March. I'm excited to watch it. It's set in modern times, so you can take with it what you will. I'm kind of excited. It's going to be in the Florida Keys this time. McGregor gained a bunch of muscle. I'm not sure how his acting's going to be, but I think it'll be fun. I'm going to go in there with positive mindset, and I think it'll be entertaining.
Oh, and we'll be really, really drunk. I agree from the trailer. I'm not a big Conor McGregor fan. Personality, he just doesn't seem like a good dude. But I will say this. If he is chewing the scenery as much the whole movie as he is in those spots that they show him, I think that he is going to be perfect for that role. I meant to pull the other guy's name, but the guy that played the original bad guy, and I don't mean Ben Garza, the overall bad guy, but I mean just the muscle bad guy. He was over the top in the first one, and it looked like Conor McGregor was over the top. But to me, what I liked was Jake. Like there was a couple scenes where it's word for word, like he goes to the doctor and, she goes, do you ever want to fight? And nobody ever wins a fight. He has that ability to make really cheesy lines sound good. And that's what I thought Patrick Swayze did in that movie. And by no means do we think this is a good movie. That's the question I get asked all the time. Well, how do y'all like that movie? How can you not like that movie? But no, me and Noe are not watching it to talk subtext afterward. I just want to know who hell's going to be Terry Funk.
Yeah. Going back to what you just said, who watches only classic, well-done movies like Good Will Hunting or Amadeus all the time? Like that seems
Amadeus
boring. I like variety in my entertainment, and I like slapstick. I love this movie, and I loved Flash Gordon. I love slapstick, dumb humor, but I also love serious stuff too. I just can't understand how people can't like both.
Well, it's so funny, and this is what I love about our show. We can talk about what we want. But it's so funny, though, because my fiance and I, we were driving back home, and she's like us. She's a movie person, and we talk movies in depth. And we were just talking about, and I know we live in what's, everybody perceives as bad times or however the political environment. But, nobody just makes fun movies anymore. Everything has to, and songs, too. We were just talking about, LFMAO, how fun they were. The last time I truly just listened to new music was literally the year that Robin Thicke and his song came out, and then Miley Cyrus. Remember, every time we hung out, we'd always end listening to those two songs because they were fun songs. Now everything has to have meaning, and it's sometimes you just need mindless fun. And at least on paper, at least through the trailer, that's what looked like the second Roadhouse is going to be. It is odd that it's back into the Florida Keys because that weird sequel, I think, is set in the Florida Keys as well.
So I never watched that
It's
sequel.
bad. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's just not a Roadhouse movie. It's just more of a murder mystery. And Jonathan Sketch plays technically his son.
Yeah.
And what bothers me about this movie, and I've talked about this before, I hate when movies have to end stuff from the first one. Well, Patrick Swayze's killed in stabbed in the back or shot or something in a bar fight. And it's like, would he really? That wouldn't happen to the guy we know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's set in the Florida Keys. Apparently, this is the exact movie that Ronda Rousey was supposed to do. And then she ended up not doing it, and they got Jake sit into it. Anyway, that's going to be probably our first off-season show. That'll be coming in March. And then we'll go back we got the league stuff we still got to finish up. And then we're still working on what we're going to do on our look back series. We'll have all that coming up into the future, but let's go ahead and get to it. Intern Noah, Super Bowl 58 is set as the helmets. San Diego, I wish. San Francisco versus the Chiefs. Now, if anybody asks me, that's not a San Francisco helmet, it's silver. Well, it's retro, and they wore silver helmets up into, I think, 74. Anyway, overall, first off, your thoughts on the two games, just overall as a fan.
As a fan, I like the coaching, the coaching that was on display in the AFC title game. I thought it was a nice chess match. Mike McDonald, Ravens defensive coordinator, I thought he did a really good job in the second half adjusting to Kansas City's offense, because the final score was 17-10 Kansas City. But Kansas City did all their offense in the first half.
Oh, yeah.
So the second half, they got shut down. They didn't do as well. But, kudos to McDonald to do the second half adjustment. And then on their offense, man, Lamar Jackson, I think he needs another year under Todd Monken's offense, because he just seems to be going the opposite way as far as, 2019 when he won his first MVP. He's going to win the MVP this year. So in 2019 when he won his first MVP, he was more of a running scrambler, quick release throws, didn't really have to think too much. Now he's actually being more patient, and kudos to him. But in this game, he was patient to a fault. He was taking too long to make a decision.
That's a good point.
And he just wasn't scrambling when he should have. He is faster than anyone on that field, and he was getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. He looked slow, and I know he's not that slow.
You think maybe he was beat up?
That could be possible. I haven't heard anything. It just looked like he was slow to me.
Now, saying all that real quick, he did have 8 carries for 54 yards, 6.8 yards a carry, but I agree with everything you said, mainly the holding on to the ball too long.
Yeah. And I think next year, just keep everything the same. I think he just needs another year under this offense, another offseason. He looked really good during the season. It's just in this game, he was taking too long to make a decision. You saw it in this game, and then some of the decisions he was making, like that interception in the end zone and triple coverage.
That was terrible.
It just shouldn't have been done. In the other game, tale of two halves.
Yeah.
Tale of two halves. It was a great game for me to watch. I hate it for the Lion fans.
Oh, I do too.
But it's the team that won should have won, and they ended up winning. They just didn't win the way I thought they would win. You actually kind of predicted both games as far as how it would turn out.
Yeah, I felt good about those picks. I had Kansas City winning 24-17. I had the Lions winning 38-35, I think. But I also said it didn't matter. I'm one of those big believers. If you give a score out and you're saying it's like a 1-possession game or a 3-point game, and then the score kind of fits into that window that you put out and the teams are switched, I still think you make a good pick, because you literally, you call the game, and you weren't off either. You had San Francisco going a little earlier as far as, like, I think you had 31-16.
No, I actually had them scoring 34 points, which is what they ended. Yeah, but it was 34-13. I thought it would be more of a blowout.
All right, so we'll unpack these games again. As well of our show, we're in no hurry, so we're going to start with the game that played first. That's the AFC title game. Of course, Kansas City won 17-10. As you talked about, Kansas City scored 17 points, all in the first half. I also felt a little bit of that was, I think Andy Reid and them realized pretty quick that it would take big mistakes for the Ravens to be able to outscore the Chiefs in the second half. And so I do think that they kind of, slowed it down a little bit, went conservative. And that's that change of where the Chiefs are as a team. And I will say this. Now, the Patriots in their dynasty, and you kind of want to, in your mind, put it all together, but really it's split into two. They did different things in each part, but they were separate dynasties just with the same quarterback and the same head coach.
Yeah.
I have never seen a team in a current dynasty, in a dynasty that's still going on, completely change their MO as much as the Chiefs have from that first time you realized, holy crap, Patrick Mahomes and this offense are amazing. Back then it was, hey, you're going to have to win every game 38-35, and they did. Now, dude, your offense, hey, just put up 14 to 17 points, and this defense might be able to take care of it for you.
Yeah, it looks to be the case. Really, it's been mostly this year that has happened. The defense, they got a lot of young guys last couple of years on that side of the ball because they were going to lose some players.
Yeah.
But they've all been hits. George Karlaftis has turned into a great edge rusher. Nick Bolton has turned into a great run stuffing linebacker. Darius Sneed is a great cover corner. Trent McDuffie's an all-pro cover corner. They got a free agent in Reed at safety. So, they kind of filled it up. And then they just paid Chris Jones a ton of money to stay. So, they're pretty set there. They look so tough to play against. Even in the last loss, which was to the Raiders on Christmas, they didn't allow any points on defense. It was 2 pick sixes by Mahomes. So, yeah, and right now they're just playing pretty efficient on offense. Pacheco's getting his carries, getting the tough yards. And Kelce at 34 years old against a great Ravens defense over Kyle Hamilton, who's 6'4" and a safety.
Really good player.
And Patrick Queen, who's a great pass defending linebacker. And Kelce just keeps finding the open pockets in any defense. And
I don't even know how open he was. This is a game where that connection between him and Mahomes, you see it. This is that game where, and nothing against it, but Romo and Witten, they never could quite do this in these type of games. And that's not a knock to either one of them. Witten's going to be a Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, there was a couple catches, including that diving catch where Mahomes literally put the ball at only one spot. And Kelce not only caught it, but knew where the spot was going to be. I think that's the thing we underemphasize today in today's football and how complex it is. Wide receivers don't go out going, hey, I'm running a slant, or hey, I'm running an out. They go out going, okay, if the linebacker is shading me inside shoulder, I'm running an out. If the linebacker is shading me outside shoulder, I'm running a slant. And so to read all that in that moment and to have you and the quarterback be on the same page, that's why I keep saying today's offenses are just so much more complex, just in that they would, like, I love the 85 Bears, but an offense today would eviscerate the 85 Bears. And I'm not even talking about athleticism. In fact, that might be what would keep the Bears in the game, is they were so athletic defensively, but their scheme, an NFL team today would just pick apart that scheme in 3 drives.
Yeah, that defense only worked for a certain era, and in this case, for a certain year with the right coach. That would not work in today's NFL. But yeah, Kelce, it's just unbelievable how he's doing it now at this age.
Greatest tight end of ever.
I'll let you know when he retires, because Tony Gonzalez is still up there.
But do you feel like, and I know we don't put them in the same light like we do quarterbacks, right or wrong, but Kelce's going to at least have 2, maybe 3, and you don't really, I know he slowed down compared to where he was this year, but I still think he has a couple of years left, and I don't think the Chiefs are going anywhere. Do the rings comparison matter to you at a tight end?
They've never mattered to me, no matter what position. I don't think one position tells you if they're going to win. Like, I don't think Trent Dilfer is better than Dan Marino.
Oh, yeah. We'll have that. That's a show coming for a future episode someday. I don't know anytime soon, but one day we will have the quarterback and championship talk, because you and I think that's one of the things when we first met, we kind of bonded over, was the fact that you and I, in that era, it was Romo. We were like, yeah, that, winning rings doesn't decide the value. And I was just having this conversation with people on Facebook about Lamar Jackson. Oh, he's overpaid. And I'm like, well, A, this is his first AFC title game. Jesus Christ, people. And B, the value of a player is not just the playoffs. In fact, that really the playoffs are just kind of secondary. And so that'll be a show for the future. But let's talk about Lamar. I will just say it. And this isn't a knock on him. I'm not knocking his manhood. I think first time in the AFC title game, I think it was a moment was just a little bit too big for him.
It could have been. It could have very well been. I don't know if I agree with that fully, but I would say he was cautious a lot in the first half, and then he was kind of like forced into being in shotgun and passing it every down, which I don't know if I agreed with that play calling in the second half.
Yeah.
But he did the best he could. And this is the toughest part for me because I'm like, did the Ravens choke or Kansas City is just that stout on defense? And I think it's just I think it's the latter. I really think Kansas City's operating on a whole different level. They have a world-class defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo.
Man,
they got the right parts on defense, the right coach. They've been here. They've had the experience. They know what to do. The game, it's not too big of a moment for them.
Well, that's part of my point. Like again, when you say the moment's too big for a player, we now go. We want to use the term choke. I don't mean this as a knock. To me, this is a building experience for Lamar Jackson, and so I see this as being a learning experience because I totally agree. In the first half, you could almost see, and part of the second half too, you could almost see that in his mind, he was like, don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball. And you just didn't play freely. And in fact, if they ever get back to an AFC title game, you're going to hear him talk about that the week of. He's going to say, I guarantee you, word for word, I need to play my game. I need to play looser. I was a little wound tight the first time. And again, that's not a knock. I'm tired of us deciding these guys' careers in the middle of their career. Oh, well, Dak Prescott will never win because he hasn't yet. Well, his career's not over. Same with Lamar Jackson. And I'll go on record. I think Lamar Jackson wins at least one Super Bowl before it's over.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this game, I completely agree. I think he'll win at least one. If you look at this game, he had 2 turnovers. He had the fumble. He had the interception. Neither of them resulted in chief points, but it did result in good drives ending early.
Yeah.
The fumble especially, and then the interception in the end zone. What the Chiefs were able to do in the second half, they were giving up yards, but they were figuring out ways to create turnovers and to stop drives from resulting in points.
Yeah.
Regardless of Jackson's 2 turnovers, the interception was terrible. The worst turnover this whole game was Zay Flowers. He just had a bad series in the second half.
Yeah, you saw and again, this is not labeling him for the rest of his career, but you saw the immaturity of a young guy. I've always liked Flowers. I think he is wonderful at wide receiver. I think up into this you called it trifecta of fuckery last night, which I really, really liked. I called it a Three Stooges moment. But up into that point, you were starting to see him develop as a wide receiver. And I hope people are able to get him back focused and not let this be one of those things that define him, because I think he's special. But you're right. Let's start it off. First off, you want to talk about being there before? The Chiefs got under the Ravens' skin so much, and they got the Ravens to commit so many penalties. If you don't think that Travis Kelce went out onto the field during warm-up to find something to get the Ravens pissed off about, then you don't understand sports psychology. It just happened to be Justin Tucker's helmet and ball. That wasn't a thing where in the moment. Travis Kelce went out there going, I want to fuck with them, and I'm going to get them mad. It's the same thing. And I know we always compare Cowboys. Go back to the 93 conference title game and how they got San Francisco. That was the whole reason Jimmy Johnson did the "we will win." And then in the pregame, Larry Brown's got Jerry Rice shooting him the finger and stuff. And I remember Michael Irvin said we knew at that moment we had them. When Jerry Rice, one of the classiest guys in the league, is shooting you the finger, you're getting under their skin. That's what the Chiefs did to the Ravens, man.
Yeah, they did. I just love that him and Mahomes found Justin Tucker's gear and just started like kicking him, and pregame scuffle. And then they were still jawing with Kelce the whole game. I mean, there were tackles, there was blocks that were extended beyond the whistle.
That's what I meant. There was a flag on a defender. You can talk about the Zay Flowers taunting, and it was a bad one. But there was the personal foul on one of the Ravens on Kelce. There was the offsides personal foul, which we'll talk about here in a minute because I have an issue with that flag, what they called on that, but we'll talk about that. And also, that might have been, and Romo was on to it. And the moment gets lost because MVS makes the great catch. But the Ravens might have did one of the most brilliant, bold coaching moves that'll be forgotten about. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's pour all this into what we're talking about with Flowers. The first mistake was after making a great catch, he taunts Ladarius Sneed, pushed him down, spun the ball. I did think it was funny when Gene Stadator was the official that they bring on was like, yeah, if they're pushing, the official will get in. But once he spun the ball, that's the flag. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, wouldn't the violence be the flag and the spinning of the ball really not be that big of a deal? I don't like the taunting calls. I think that's stupid. These are grown men. Like, a game shouldn't be decided because a guy's celebrated or not celebrated. So I'm not defending Flowers on that. I just think the whole taunting thing is stupid. These are grown men.
I initially agreed with that, but then I started thinking, I kind of get why they do it now. Because if they allow that, which I'm perfectly fine with, but I know what's going to happen. If that's okay, then someone's going to take it up another notch.
That's
and
fine.
Another notch.
That's
and
fine.
Notch, and people won't know when to stop. And it could get bad. So I understand it from that point, just to keep safety in it. Just, if you're going to taunt, maybe a little trash talk and then go back to the huddle.
But then I go back to if the spinning the ball is going to be called, then him pushing the guy should have been the first thing that was called.
Well, because in the moment, it looked like he was throwing the ball at Ladarius Sneed while he was on the ground, like he was slamming the ball. And that's what it looked like.
I get that.
So, I mean, replay was a little bit different, but yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that the call was bad. With the rule on the books, it's the right call. I just think that, and I felt this all the way back. And unfortunately, Dallas kind of played a part in this way back in the day. The Commanders, former Redskins, they used to have a fun bunch wide receiver core, and they would celebrate after every touchdown if one of them caught it. And in one of the games against Dallas, they celebrate, and a couple of the Cowboys secondary guys get in the middle and pushing and shoving. And that literally is what led to there for a while you couldn't celebrate at all. So I get it. I get that it might escalate, but I mean, I go to, okay, so what if it eventually escalates to a flag? Well, then everybody will back off. But anyway, so that's first one. So they get the ball, great field position, but 15 yards back. But damn it, if Zay Flowers doesn't get the first down to give them really basically right back where they were. So you wiped all that away. Everything's great. And then on a beautiful read by Lamar Jackson, he finds Flowers across the middle. Flowers, and this is not anything this is just bad luck. He's diving for the end zone, and I didn't see who it was. Was it Sneed?
It was Sneed. Yep.
Knocked the ball. Beautiful play by him, and the ball goes into the end zone. And it's crazy how that play has become a big thing all of a sudden. And it's crazy for the Chiefs. Last week it hurt them. This week it helped them. But the ball gets fumbled into the end zone, blah, blah, blah. And then Flowers apparently went to the sideline, and I'm guessing he probably slammed his helmet down. I can almost guarantee what happened. He slammed his helmet down. He got his finger caught between his helmet and the bench, and he cut his hand. And he basically was really non-effective the rest of the game.
Yeah, he came back in the game, but he was definitely not the same. So, yeah, it was a trifecta of miscues.
No. I like it what you said. In fact, we could literally name a show where you point out, like in a bad situation, 3 reasons why and call it the trifectory of fuckery, because I love that.
Yeah, so the taunting after a big 50-plus yard play, the fumbling at the 1-yard line that went in the end zone, recovered by McDuffie, then going to the sideline, frustrated, slamming the helmet on the bench and getting your finger cut. So, yeah, it was just a bad sequence for Zay Flowers. But he's a rookie. He'll learn from it. He'll grow. He'll be fine.
Sit over him.
He is who they thought Rashad Bateman was, which was a number 1 receiver. So they got the number 1 guy for the future. Bateman can still stay there, but he ain't a 1. He might be a 2. We'll see. Beckham was on a 1-year contract. They
He's
might
fine.
probably gone. They need to get a running game of some sorts consistently because they didn't really do too much in this game, even though Jackson had a decent game running, except for when he didn't. So I'm not sure what the status is of their starting running back who was out for the year again with a torn ACL.
Which one? I mean, you've got Dobbs, you've got Mitchell that kind of came out of nowhere, in week 5 or 6 and lit up the fantasy world for 3 weeks and then got hurt. Edwards is always hurt. Justice Hill is always hurt. And so let's go back to, you talk about that run game. This is where mistake to me, number one, with the offense was, this was a game that was basically a 10-point game for most of the game. And yet the Ravens only rushed the ball 16 times. Like, that makes no sense. I mean, I said it through the game or halfway through the game. I told you, man, it feels like Kansas City's had the ball the whole game. Well, yeah, because they ran it 32 times. Now, here's the funny thing. They ran it 32 times for only 89 yards. That's 2.8 yards. Yet it felt like their run game was effective because they got the yards when they needed them. When they needed 5, they got 5. When they needed 6, they got 6. And they were willing to stick to it. I felt like Baltimore went away from what they do right.
Yeah, for all season, I've been praising Todd Monken and how they've improved on offense and how versatile and patient they have been just running their offense. They had one of the best offenses in football, but in this game, for some reason, especially in the third and fourth quarter, they were just in shotgun, throwing it every down. They're not going to win with Lamar Jackson attempting 37 passes. They need something more balanced than that. And the thing was, it was only 17-7, and they were just throwing it like they were in trouble.
Yes.
They had scoring opportunities. They got stalled by an interception and a fumble. They had opportunities to score. They just self-destructed themselves. So it's not like they weren't running up and down on the Chiefs. It's just it was bad play calling, and which is the first time all season I've actually said that about the Ravens on offense. But yeah, there's something that's going to sting with them going into the offseason. They have 6 months to figure out what they want to do going forward. But I mean, if it was me, I'd say keep everything the way it is. It's just one bad game, reduce your turnovers, somehow get in the red zone. They were only in the red zone one time in this whole game.
Yeah.
So, and that was a Zay Flowers fumble.
Yeah.
So they need to do something else, man. That was not good. Like, don't let the moment turn you into someone that, for Dan Campbell, we'll talk about him.
I was just about to go there, dude.
at least Campbell was consistent.
Exactly.
But Baltimore did something very atypical of themselves. So
yeah, exactly right there. I feel like, the Ravens need to figure out some wide receiver things. That's the one thing I don't get. I could see a little bit with Kansas City. You're thinking, okay, we've got a guy in Mahomes that, he can make crappy wide receivers look okay, and we can maybe skimp some money there. But even then, that's kind of caught them at times. And if they end up losing a Super Bowl, I think we'll probably be talking about how the wide receivers didn't do anything. Now, they're lucky they're playing a team in the Niners that, I thought Greg Olsen did a great job, kind of like, there's a lot of things that tell you that the Niners defense is really good. But when, again, kind of how Dallas, but when they go up against a good offense, they seem to give up a lot of yards and points. And so that might help the Chiefs. But yeah, the Ravens, they've got to figure out wide receiver. But we've been saying that now for 3-4 years. Like, figure out wide receiver. Zay Flowers, maybe. I think he's close. But I don't think you can go in and go, okay, we've got Flowers, Bateman, and let's hope we pick up a third. I think you need to go with the idea of you need a 1B wide receiver this year in the draft.
Unless they want to really use Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews on the field at the same time, yeah, they definitely need another receiver.
Well, even doing that, I mean, in today's NFL, in my opinion, even if you're a conservative offense, you need 5 solid targets at all times. They don't all have to be 1,000 yards, of course, but you need to be able to, when a defense game plans, they've got to worry about, okay, well, if we roll this guy, what happens over here? All right, so let's go to the Chiefs side. Dude, I mean, again, this just shows the amazingness, again, of this franchise in this era. I've never seen a team just kind of the Steelers being the closest one, and they flipped it. They did the opposite. They started out with a run game defense only, and Terry Bradshaw just don't make mistakes too in 78 and 79 to where it was John Stallworth and Lynn Swann and Terry Bradshaw, and the defense was okay. The running game was okay, but that's the only time I've ever seen a franchise in a dynasty convert to different style. This is a different Chiefs team than in 2019.
Yeah, this has only been 4 or 5 years. The 2018 was the first year Mahomes was starting, and they got to the AFC title game. Basically, Tyreek Hill had a monster year, but Cole Hardman came in there every so often. So they had like versatility there, and then they had Kareem Hunt as well. Then they morphed in the 2019 championship team. And then 2020, they really should have been undefeated the whole season. I think they were 14-2. And then you saw the one glaring weakness when they got blitzed like crazy by the Buccaneers in that Super Bowl,
which they fixed
because they have the top line in football. It's very impressive to watch them play. They play nasty. They play finesse. They're really good. 2021, they lost to the Bengals. They just got outclassed by Lou Anamuro's defense.
Yeah.
And then now in 2022, it was more like the Travis Kelce show. They had Juju Smith-Schuster and they had MVS at wide receiver. It was a drop down from Tyreek Hill, but Schuster had a really good year, a really solid year. And then MVS came in like he does every 3 or 4 games and had a breakout game. And then this year, they only had MVS, and Rashee Rice kind of came on late, but do you really think he's number 1 right now?
Rice? Oh, man, that's a good question. I think Rice is the guy that's the future. He had 938 yards this year, 80 receptions, 7 touchdowns. But let's remember one thing. Let's go back to the Eagles, and everybody remembers, of course, the Terrell Owens era. But Andy Reid, even then, man, he was rolling out Todd Pinkston as a wide receiver. This is kind of how Andy Reid, operates. But yeah, let's go to Scantling. How apropos all we needed was Kadarius Toney to make a big catch, because those two have been the ones that kind of get the flack, and sometimes well deserved, of just dropping, sheer touchdowns. Scantling in that game that we watched against Eagles, yeah. I mean, he has a wide open touchdown and he drops it, and it would have sealed the deal. And of course, Tony's, had 3 or 4 epic moments this year of just crappery. So I thought it was fitting that this goes to show that Mahomes keeps trusting these guys, or maybe Reid does and has to tell Mahomes behind the scenes, like, dude, you got to give me some more wide receivers. But still, in the moment, he trusted his guy to make the play.
He did. 39 or a little over 2 minutes left. They looked like they were going to run the ball and punt the ball back to the Ravens, give them one last shot to tie it. Go route to MVS, catches it, 32-yard gain, seals the game. They go to the Super Bowl.
So now in that moment, Jim Harbaugh and that staff did one of the brightest things I've seen. So they've scored, they kick off, they've got 2 timeouts in a 2-minute warning. Kansas City on the very first play basically gets almost a first down on a run. It's going to be, and then there's a flag. So it was, and I thought Romo talked a great thing about what would Reid do. Do you take 2nd and short or 1st and 5? There was positives to both. 2nd and short gets you closer to a first down, but if something happens, you slip, all of a sudden then it becomes 3rd and 5 against a really good defense. Or do you take the extra down, but you go back 5 yards? And then again, this is a really good defense. So right as they're about to play, a Raven player, was it Smith that went off sides? I think it was Smith that went off sides. Or was it Queen? I can't remember. Anyway, one of them went off sides and they hit the Chief. And so I don't understand the personal foul. I mean, we have seen many plays through the history of the NFL where a guy jumps offside and in fact, we used to be taught All right, if you're all sides, just finish it. You might as well get your free hit in. I don't understand the flag there for personal foul. But anyway,
it was Roquan Smith.
It was Roquan Smith. I don't understand why the officials decided in that moment that that's the personal foul. Like, that made no sense to me. But, and maybe it's because they realized too, the Ravens purposely jumped off sides.
Yeah.
He purposely jumped off sides because 1st and 5 is worse than 1st and 10 because you need them. You need time. You need less snaps and time. So it would be better to go ahead and get that first down over with, let them have it, and then you get to reset at 1st and 10. Brilliant move. That's a brilliant move. It gets lost in all this. But yeah, I go back to, and all the officials say, well, that's the right call. He obviously was roughing. But we have seen that 100 times or thousands of times. I'm not saying it was a bad call. I just don't understand the call. Like, that just looked like a normal, he jumped off sides and he hit the guy.
I think from the referee standpoint, they're thinking, well, if you're purposely doing it, why don't you just tap him? Why are you pushing him to the ground?
Well, and then the player can be like, I genuinely was off sides. I genuinely thought the ball was being snapped. That goes to the old NBA thing. You remember the NBA? They cracked down a few years ago because people were like, just, okay, well, I got to foul you. Whap. But they at least came out and said, we're doing this because of that. I just felt that was a weird call. I felt like if they don't call that personal foul, nobody, I don't know. That just, I felt it killed a really good coaching moment that'll get lost. But going back to you making like you said, they go one-on-one with MVS. I mean, if you're the Ravens, aren't you fine with that call? I mean, odds are he's not going to catch it, and yet he effing catches it. And that just goes to show you why sometimes it's not about how it's not just about team. It's about, it's about the Chiefs in that moment made that play. And that's one of the reasons why they keep going to the Super Bowl is those are the plays that nobody talks about 5 years from now that decides how you win.
Yeah. He has made a lot of drops in his career, but hey, kudos to him. He has also made some clutch catches, and that was one of them. It helped his team get to the Super Bowl. Even Kadarius Toney, for all the stuff we make fun of him for, yes, he was offside in that game against the Bills during the regular season, but in the Super Bowl, he caught the game-winning touchdown.
Yep.
So he's capable of greatness, and the Chiefs were actually projecting him to be their top receiver this year. It didn't happen. Maybe it will happen. He just needs to get it right up here. Maybe it's a mental thing.
I still think Reed loves this. I think Reed likes not having a true one wide receiver. I know he wants more consistency, but I think I don't know if this, like, to me, the Ravens feel like they need more wide receiving help. I know the Chiefs do, but I don't think. I think if you ask Andy Reid, that would still be 3 or 4 down on the list of what they need, especially with Isaiah Pacheco coming through as a running back. Again, his numbers don't look good, 2.8 yards, but whenever they needed a big play, and especially in the first half, that run game was getting yards on a good Ravens defense.
As of right now, that's true, but whenever Kelce retires, they're going to need something else because
You don't think Blake Bell can do it?
You don't think who?
Blake Bell can be their number one.
The Belldozer? Probably not.
So how much longer do you think he has? Now, I could see a world, and I know this is going to sound really goofy because we're in this, I could see a world where they win the World Super Bowl. I just created a new sport.
The Stanley Cup.
They win the Stanley NBA Cup. But if they win the Super Bowl this year, I could see Kelce being done. I could see Kelce being like, okay, I've got 3 rings. I've got a great podcast. My brother might be retiring. I'm in love with Taylor Swift, and I can go tour the world with her now and show up on stage every couple weeks. You're so weird. Show up on stage every couple weeks and do that. I could see that, but in all realization, I still think he plays 3 to 4 more years.
So to me, the greatest tight end I've ever seen was Rob Gronkowski, believe it or not.
Yeah, if he could have stayed healthy, I don't disagree with you that at all.
And great point, because that was the thing I was going to say. Compared to Gronkowski, Kelce has health.
Oh, yeah.
He's been relatively healthy his whole career. I know he's bruised up from playing all these long seasons, but relatively speaking, for someone that's his age, he is relatively healthy.
Yeah.
And he keeps a unique physique. Like, he's 6'5", but maybe like 245, 250. He's not an old school Eric Green tight end where he's like 275, 280. Like, he keeps it lean, and he's bottom heavy, so he's really good at blocking as well.
Yeah.
That's a very underrated facet of his game. He's a really good blocker. I personally could see him playing 3 years and getting close to breaking. He'll be close to breaking all the tight end records by that point, and he'll be scarily close to breaking a lot of Jerry Rice's records, which he broke one of them in this game for the most postseason receptions by any player.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those things that a lot of people thought would never be even touched. Now, I want to look up something before I say this. I do know playoff records. You look at baseball, playoff records are way different now compared to where they were before because of
more games.
Like the Rangers this year. And it's funny too, because the Rangers, it wasn't like the Rangers were playing in a bunch of 7-game series, but they played in enough games that a lot of their guys broke records. And it's not that that's bad. They're not valid records, but it's like, okay, those records wouldn't have been broke if you hadn't played 47, more games than everybody else. So let me look up this. I will say this.
I was going to say, congratulations to Adrian Beltre, Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, Ranger Hall of Famer. He'll technically go in as a Ranger, though that's not really a big thing anymore like they used to. You talk about his blocking, that Isaac Pacheco touchdown in the first half. They did a good job of showing he sealed the edge off against Queen. Again, a great player. We're not talking about some scrub. We're talking about a guy who all pro mentions and is a really good player. So let me see. So here's the great thing about Travis Kelce. So he broke his record in 8 less games
than Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice had 29 playoff games. Travis Kelce has 21 playoff games.
Now you have to think about it, though. You have to think about it. Jerry Rice, from the beginning of his career to the end of his career, played deep in the playoffs almost every year.
Yeah.
Kelce's getting it in the last 5 or 6 years of his career. I mean, you remember before 2018 or so, or before 2015, the Chiefs didn't really win a playoff game since, I think, 93 against the Houston Oilers.
Yeah, it's when they beat Houston 30-0.
Yeah, again, they beat another Houston team.
Yep.
So, and even then, it was one game. They would never get past the divisional round. Or if they had a 2 or 1 seed, they would just lose at home in the divisional round. So they really didn't get to the title game until 2018. And then they've been in the AFC title game ever since.
Yeah.
And then also now the Super Bowl. So that's a lot of it's literally subject. Like, part of it is, yes, Rice is an all-time great receiver, the greatest ever. But also he was on a great team that could get deep in the playoffs. So it's really a two-parter. This is really more of a team reward than an individual reward. Think about Calvin Johnson on some of those Patriot teams. Think about all the records he would have broke.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, totally. I totally agree with you. And again, that's the thing. When you start talking the whole rings makes a player, it doesn't. I mean, rings top off a player. It caps your career. It's what you use. To me, it's what you use to debate greatness inside the Hall of Fame, not just your overall greatness. A player can be great without a ring. That's the one thing I've always thought baseball does well. Baseball, it's stats. Sometimes a little too much, because sometimes you'll be like, okay, yeah, he's great, but he never made a playoff. Okay, so how can you compare? But give me stats first, rings later, because that's such a team need thing. You put Patrick Mahomes on bad teams, he would make them better, but he wouldn't take them to the Super Bowl. Period.
True. It's a team sport. It does take a team to win. Like Dan Fouts in the late 70s, early 80s, he was on some really great offenses for the Chargers, but they didn't have an all-around great team.
No.
But they were so good offensively that they could always get far enough.
And by the way, you need those teams to make the league fun. You need the Chargers of the late 70s, early 80s, even though they couldn't win a Super Bowl. You need the Oilers of the early 90s. The Lions of the early 90s. Again, people act like because 91 was when the only time they won a playoff game in that era, they still were a fun team and they still were consistently in the playoffs. You need those teams to give us depth in the league. Not everybody can be championship 100% contender. And I like parity, but I don't want everybody to be at the top. That wouldn't be fun, because how to explain this? When two great teams play, usually it's ugly football. because both teams are so good. I mean, that's why like the Lions-Niners was fun because it was kind of, just go, lots of points and stuff. But anyway, so the Chiefs move on. Now let's talk Niners, Detroit. Did you ever feel that the Lions were going to win? Because I didn't. Even when they were up 24 even though I picked the Lions, when they were up 24-7, it just felt like you and I have done this long enough. We've been fans long enough. I always go back to the Buffalo-Houston game or the Houston-Kansas City game where a team jumps out by double digits and you just go, yeah, this ain't going to last. This just won't last. And unfortunately, it didn't, as the Niners erased a 24-7 deficit. They scored 27 points in the second half and just absolutely a great game. But where do you want to start with this game?
Well, it's a tale of two halves. We can always start with the first half. When I was watching this game, I never did think Detroit was just going to blow it out, even though they were, scoring and scoring and scoring. I know. I looked at the 49ers. I was like, okay, look, they're not really getting it to Debo right now. They're going to correct that in the second half. They're still getting some running in with McCaffrey. Detroit's doing a decent job stopping him, but I know that's going to change in the second half.
Yeah.
I was just thinking Detroit needs to just keep scoring because they need to pad this lead as much as possible just to make it that much more difficult. And then the second half happened. It was one play after another that kind of symbolized what happened for the Lions in the second half. I will say I've had some time to think about it. A lot of people are talking about Dan Campbell's fourth down calls. I was okay with that 4th and 2.
Yeah.
If it was me, I would have kicked. But the execution, the play call by Ben Johnson, the Lions OC, was perfect.
Yep.
Goff got it right to Reynolds. Reynolds just didn't execute. He just didn't catch the ball. And that kind of started the domino effect where what's that line player? Kendall Vildor, their cornerback. Deep pass by Purdy after the 4th and 2. 2 plays later, really. He threw a deep pass. Vildor, it hit his helmet, hit his face mask, bounced off, and then Brandon Ayuk was right there for the big 51-yard catch.
Yeah, and that's one of those, again, when you start talking QBs and clutch and all that, are you going to try to tell me Purdy gets credit for any of that? Because that was a terrible decision. That was a bad decision, bad pass, and the play broke right for him. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just, again, that's when we go back to this quarterback chokes or quarterback big moment. Or I didn't, and I'm saying this without looking at the stats. I'm pulling it up right now. And I know that, he ended up 20 of 31 for 267 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Purdy did. And I know people will say, but that second half, but I never felt that Purdy was like taking over the game or anything like this. This game was going to be dependent on McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. And once those two got rolling, this offense looked completely different.
Think about like the 49ers responded in the second half with a drive, but it got stalled. It resulted in a field goal. If I was a Lions fan, I'd be very happy with that because you're expecting the 49ers to course correct in the second half, drive, score a touchdown immediately. And the defense was able to stop them. So I'm really happy. And then my team is driving back on offense, and they're facing a 4th and 2. It was really 3rd and 5, so you're thinking they're going to pass, but Dan Campbell's like, well, this is 4-down territory, so I'm going to run. They get 3 yards, 4th and 2. Well-executed play, well-called play.
Yeah.
Wasn't executed the way it should have been. So turnover on downs, 49ers do what great teams do, take that ball and respond with the touchdown. With some luck, I don't think it really started clicking on the 49ers offense, to your point, until the luck happened, until the ball hit the face mask into Ayuk's hands. And then it was 24-17, and then Detroit gets the ball back, Gibbs fumbles.
That was the killer right there, man.
And then McCaffrey responds with a touchdown to tie it up. So it was just, little things like that happen, and that changes the momentum of the game. And then you could see Detroit's offense wasn't really there until the last minute of the game.
Well, and, as much as I said that about Purdy, same thing about Jared Goff. This was the game, and, they lose by 3. He doesn't really have a bad game, but, like, he didn't quite make some of the throws or make some of the plays that he really needed to make. And again, that goes back to where Goff is as a quarterback. Where do you put him? I think he's obviously can get you to a Super Bowl. He can win a Super Bowl. If you can get to a Super Bowl, you can win a Super Bowl. Period. I don't care. Again, this whole choking thing goes, but for me, more just physically, it still remains. If you get pressure on him, he starts to struggle. I know on one of those throws that would have been a first down in the second half. Greg Olson said it best. You could call it a drop pass, you could call it a not great throw. The play didn't get happen, but part of the reason why was Goff got pressured and he kind of short armed it left, and his wide receiver, I think it was Jameson, or it might have been Reynolds, but I think it was Jameson, and he kind of pivoted and the ball got sent off to his the side and it was incomplete. I don't know. This is just a weird game because I came out of this game realizing 100%. I think the NFC is like 3 steps below the AFC. Like, I mean, and San Francisco is built well, and San Francisco might prove me wrong and complete complete it this time instead of letting the Chiefs come back like they did in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But I just feel like the Chiefs are just going to not dominate, but I don't think this game's going to be close in the fourth quarter. And I might, again, we're not doing our picks and preview till next week, and I might have a completely different view. But I even said we did our 2 early picks last night, and I think I said 31-13 or something like that. I just think that the AFC is just better and deeper and more physical and more athletic and all the things that, we say that San Francisco is. I think the Chiefs are that, and they have Patrick Mahomes.
2 years ago, I was crapping on that conference. Remember when the Titans got the number 1 seed?
Yep.
That was just 2 years ago. And I was telling you, none of these teams, even the Chiefs, look like they could beat anyone from the NFC. Now, it ended up being a close game in that Super Bowl. Bengals almost won that game, but in 2 years, now I think the AFC is far superior to the NFC. I think Buffalo could beat the 49ers right now. I think Kansas City can beat the 49ers right now.
Well, we saw what the Ravens did.
The Ravens can. I mean, well, even in that game, it was 4 Purdy interceptions. That was mainly the Ravens.
But that's point. I get your point. Hey, that doesn't always happen, but that's the point. Like I don't know if Purdy has much of a different game against that Ravens defense if they played today.
Yeah, I mean, I could see 2013 Seattle and the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos offense is that inept if they play again.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, I see what your point. Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's 4 or 5 teams in the AFC that I think can beat the top team in the NFC. And the funny thing is the NFC played out almost exactly how we thought it would be. It was either going to be the 49ers, the Eagles, or the Cowboys. I said when the season started, Eagles, there hasn't been a repeat team that made it in like 50 years. And then with the 49ers, they usually choke in the NFC title game. They almost did in this game.
Yeah.
And then with the Cowboys, I was like, it's just them by default. Like at that point. And what ended up happening was the 49ers made it. So one of those 3 teams, you and I both knew we were going to make it. It ended up being the 49ers.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking the same thing just overall Super Bowl. If you told me at the beginning of the year it's Chiefs, Niners, we'd have all been like, yeah, okay, yeah, we see that. But it's the path. And that's why I say sometimes I think we're in an era now where we focus too much on the championships. It's how it got there, though, was still so crazy and so much like the Chiefs weren't good enough. The Bills weren't good enough. Oh, and then boom, they're back great. Cowboys were running raw shed, and then they weren't. And then we thought got back good. The Niners looked bored at times. They were supposed to be so good. But let's go ahead and let's take this NFC and look at through the lens of the Cowboys. This game right here is why I don't think you tear things down. This is why this game right here shows me that I still feel Dallas. And I do believe at this point for Dallas, it's a mental thing. Whether they say it or not, it's a mental thing. It has to be. It becomes a mental thing for anything. When you can't do something for so long, whether you want to say it's in your mind or not, it's in your mind. But I still see Dallas is right there with the Niners and the Lions and, of course, the Eagles. And this is why I get, hey, yeah, we don't want to tear this down. We want to add and see if we can change things a little bit, but we still believe in the core.
Yeah, but something does have to change. I'm not sure if it's just the defensive coordinator and Dan Quinn or personnel or both, but they're plateauing.
Or
And
you change philosophy inside Dan Quinn.
you and I both know a lot of these coaches are unwilling to change. They would rather die doing it their way than
Yep.
live and succeed and win doing it someone else's way.
And that's why Andy Reid's a great coach. And that's why Bill Belichick was a great coach. And you can say, well, Brady, yeah, but let's again go look at the two Patriots runs. One of them was defense, running game, and great special teams. The other one was Tom Brady and that offense. Great coaches adapt 100%. And you said it best, though. That's the issue. Dan Quinn's not going anywhere. He's obviously not getting any head coaching job. And I don't see the Cowboys. I think if the Cowboys were going to fire him, that you've already done that.
Who would hire him right now?
Nobody. That's my point. Yeah, I mean, why would you?
You saw what Green Bay was able to do to Dallas. Like, why would you even think about making him your head coach?
Well, and I don't know. I think he's one of those that the media keeps making as hey, this is a guy getting another. He's a hot coaching thing. I don't know any organization. Let's say the Cowboys won the Super Bowl this year. I still don't see any organization because when you look at what Dan Quinn did with Atlanta, he did great things. Do not get me wrong. But let's not forget, a lot of that was them just trying to take that next step finally. And they finally did under Quinn. But his defense, his baby, every year as the Atlanta head coach, his defense got worse and his defense got worse. That's not a good sign to me. So I don't know if he ever was truly and he might get another shot. I'm not saying he won't, but I think that's more of a media thing. I don't know if he ever has been as hot of a name as people claim he is now.
Maybe, I guess. They did finally hire a coach, though. I would say that they got Raheem Morris, the Rams DC, and he was the interim coach when Quinn got fired from the Falcons.
Yeah, we'll bring him up here, and we'll bring up the coaching stuff when we close because there's some interesting ones.
Yeah,
because Raheem Morris becomes he's the African American coach we're all wanting, but he's also the reach head coach we all don't want. So it's kind of a confusing thing. Though I think in Tampa, I see him, and you can say, well, Quinn should get a second chance too. Yeah, but the difference is Morris was really young, and even in Tampa, I think a lot of people were like, wow, he's not sure if he's ready for this role. And they had one great year with him. But anyway, we'll finish that up here in a minute. But I see what you're saying about Quinn. I'm just saying I don't think that they're firing him. I think if somebody would have said, hey, we want to hire him, I don't think the Cowboys would have been as defiant as maybe they were last year about keeping him. But I still don't think they're going to fire him. I think we've got both coordinators coming back.
I've had a couple of weeks to think about this, and I still feel the same way. I really don't think he's going to change his philosophy.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you.
I will be very disappointed if he returns as defensive coordinator. I know he's going to do great against bad teams.
Yeah.
And I know he's going to be mediocre to crap against good teams. So it's as predictable as wrestling. I know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be a double-digit win season, playoff appearance, probably not winning the division, maybe another division round exit.
I don't even know double-digit wins this year simply because – and again, we felt this going into last year, but this schedule is legitimately tougher. This schedule this year, it's going to be. In fact, you might even be a better team coming out of it at 10-7 than if you're 12-5 and you coasted. I don't disagree with anything you've said. I'm just saying I don't. If they haven't already fired him, they're not firing him. I'll give Jerry credit for that. He doesn't wait around. He usually goes, okay, it's either done or just like with McCarthy, he could have let that marinate just to even put fire under McCarthy's seat just to see. And he's like, no, we're bringing him back. I'm saying it now. We're bringing him back. I don't think there's any team that Quinn's. Is there any even open coaching spots now?
Seattle.
Oh yeah. Seattle. But I get the idea that people want Quinn because of Carroll, but I read The Athletic, and what I love about The Athletic is you get You don't have to sign up and you just get Cowboy stuff. You get any team you want. And one of the Seattle beat writers were like, do they really want to just, if you're going to bring Quinn in and keep things the same, well, then why not just keep Carroll? Like, what's the, so I don't really think that they hire him. So, yeah, I think we're stuck with him, man. I think we can only hope that they draft better this year. And that is a mistake. The Mozzie Smith, this was a bad draft. It's okay to say that. This was a bad draft. The tight end, I never understood. We've said that over and over. They didn't need a tight end. I thought Ferguson was going to develop like he has. But Mozzie Smith, I mean, unless he just comes in and just, rules the world, as great as Dallas is at drafting offensive linemen, Dallas has been pretty bad at drafting defensive linemen.
And it showed in their run game and their interior pass rush. So, yeah, I don't know what they do there. I'm just, as a Cowboy fan, I'm just really blah about 2024.
Oh, we're hate watching all year.
Yeah, I obviously I hope for the best, but I'm very, very, very prepared for the worst, and I won't like lose it if they just crap the bed in the playoffs, even if they make the playoffs.
Dude, we're going to be back bought in when they're hosting their first round.
This one's, I don't know, man. It's been 2 weeks, and this one still kind of hurts.
You bring up the bad team, good team, but let's remember one thing, and this is one thing I meant to say in the season, and I don't remember. It's not like the year before Dallas played bad against good teams. Dallas beat good teams the year before. So that I still think that's just one of those 1 year things. It's just how the game works sometimes. Those things even out usually. Injury plague, turnovers, how you do against good teams, bad teams. I don't think that those things are consistent year to year. But yeah, I'm like you. Anyway, let's go back to this game. I want to ask you, speaking of coaches, you said you were cool with at least one of the fourth down calls from Campbell. I like how Greg Olson said, that's how he got to this game, was coaching that way. Now, in saying that, you can still be aggressive but not be stupid. I didn't have a problem with the first one. I was like you. I thought great play call, great everything. It just didn't work. The second one, it felt like you kicked that field goal and at least you breathe a little bit. Just breathe. You force it back to a two-score game. So even if San Francisco is hot and they roll right back down the field, you still got that 3-point buffer, and hey, things can change in a heartbeat. You know that. So I think Campbell's doing everything right. Now what he needs to do is figure out better consistency of when to go for it.
I mean, there was one point on 4th and short when they punted that the 49ers just kept their starting deep. Yeah, because they know Dan Campbell very likely might go for it right there and there. It's like he's just a little too gung-ho. Like it. On one side, yeah, the players love it because there's so much trust he puts on them. So like, oh yeah, we have the confidence, we can do it. Our coach believes in us. But another part is like you got to read the room, you got to feel the game, and in some moments it's appropriate to do a 4th down conversion attempts, and then other times just punt it away.
Yeah.
Or other times kick the field goal, get the points. You already have momentum on your side. Don't give the opponent any reason to feel that they have hope.
Good point. I like the way you said that. Yeah. And also you give up, so you kick a field goal and then let's say the Niners go down and they score again. Well, then just keep scoring. Just keep matching their score. And at that point, your offense have played good enough to where y'all weren't just matching. You're up 17 or 24-7. I don't know. But yeah, even in the moment, like I said, I think you and I both have watched enough football in our lives. We were just waiting for the drop, the whatever play to get San Francisco back in. Now, if they hadn't got back in, we're playing a what if. Let's say that game ends up 31-10 the Lions. I wonder if there's a waking up in San Francisco with the idea of we need to make changes. Because San Francisco definitely feels like their window, and I know people Purdy's only year 2. Again, I like Purdy, but Purdy's not the straw that's going to stir this offense. It's Debo, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's Brandon Ayuk, it's Greg Kittles. And again, every one of those, one more year added onto their legs. And also, more importantly, salary cap implications. And that's another reason I go back to, if you're Dallas, this is why you run it back one more year. Because then, and I more and more, I'm starting to think Dallas might just lame duck Dak this year, eat all of it in 1 year. And then if you go to a Super Bowl, okay, we'll run it back. Let's figure this out. If you don't, Dak, you're gone. We can re-sign CeeDee Lamb. We can re-sign Micah Parsons. We'll have plenty of cap room by then. We can figure out our next move. So I have, as much as I'm hate watching next year, I don't have as much of an issue with running it back outside of, I am like you. I do think defensive changes need to be made somehow, whether it's a defensive coordinator or a coach, Mike McCarthy, being a coach and saying, hey, Dan, we've got to be less aggressive. We've got to realize that when you look across the scope of the NFL, we're swinging slowly back to a run league. I'm telling you, it's closer than what people realize. We've got to figure out how to stop the run.
Well, going into the season, I mean, it was a great tight end class, but tight end production had dropped.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that many really good tight ends anymore. And linebacker, off the ball linebacker, and linebackers in general were not prioritized.
Nope.
And then now we're in the Super Bowl. Now we're playing two teams that have really good linebackers and have excellent tight ends, and George Kittle and Travis Kelce. And now that'll be a priority going to next season.
Yep.
So
all teams are playing shells. Their safeties are. We saw that from all four teams this week. Yeah. I thought that Romo and Olsen did a great job of talking about that. And Romo, I jokingly was like, "Man, I hope I actually had these independent thoughts and I didn't hear Romo in week 6." And it just, but even he said, "Look, safeties are playing back. It's you run the ball. It's real simple." Kansas City was trying to force the Ravens to bring their safeties down, so you run the ball. You run the ball, and there's a part of Jerry going, that's what we've been doing for the last 7 years. And they're right. The Cowboys have built since 2014 what the idea of what Dallas has wanted has been 100% correct. It's the execution that's been the issue. And that's when it's frustrating, when you know you're doing the right thing, but you just can't find the exact right pieces to put together.
You and me both know that as a Cowboy fans, how frustrating that is, because we see elite talent all over. Quarterback, running back, line, defense, kicking game. We have the couple of the best kickers in football, and Brian Anger at punter, and then our kicker,
Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, Brandon Aubrey. He hadn't missed the field goal all regular season until the very end of the year, and it was a very it was insignificant at that time. So
he is also interchangeable if need be. I'm fine with him, but I do start to wonder. He missed the field, and I know that it wouldn't have mattered in the game. But if he makes the field goal in that Packers game, you at least have, hey, we make a stop here, we get the ball back thing, and he missed. That just frustrates me when everything's going bad, and it's like, okay, well, here comes the kicker that's been consistent, and he misses. So, but yeah, I mean, it feels like the pieces are there, and also this just goes to show too sometimes that the pieces can be there and everything, but it just sometimes doesn't happen. Like that. That's why we play the game. Like it, not every team gets a Super Bowl. Sometimes you put it all together, it's all right, but it just can't ever quite happen when you need it to.
Yeah. I'm not sure when it will ever happen for the Cowboys, but
1995. Oh, wait, you're talking about in the future. I don't know. All right, let's finish out with some coaching moves. Mainly, I think we'd already talked about Jared Mayo to the Patriots, Antonio Pierce to the Raiders. I think the big one, Jim Harbaugh officially is back in the NFL, head coach of the Chargers, which started a spinoff of now Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Eagles. Before we talk about Harbaugh, let's focus in on there. I don't get that move by Philadelphia at all. And I'm not against Kellen Moore at all. I think Kellen Moore did a lot of good things in Dallas. I think he helped develop Dak and he helped develop CeeDee Lamb. But when I look at what he likes to do and what he wants to do offensively and what the Eagles are built for, those don't match to me.
I agree with you. Now, as much as I like Kellen Moore's productivity with the Cowboys, you kind of saw in the bigger games it wasn't there. And then he kind of translated over this season with the Chargers as offensive coordinator. They weren't really as good the whole season. It wasn't really had nothing to do with big games or not. Because I remember some of the games against Detroit and Miami, he was putting up points. But in other games, like a 6-0 road win against the Patriots, who were not a really good team at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the reason is. Sirianni wanted Kellen Moore to go to Philadelphia, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I need to see something else out of Kellen Moore because I've seen a lot of years of him. I know Dak loved him, but I just don't see him as being a really good and consistent offensive coordinator.
Well, and I will give him credit for this year. Justin Herbert missed 4 games. People will look at Justin Herbert's numbers and say, oh, they were down. But if you actually go and look at his 17-game season, he was literally on pace for the exact same thing that he's done. And I think the Chargers have, as you and I have just enjoyed watching the day-to-day with them. I think they had a lot of shit on the inside. I don't know if Kellen Moore gets blame or credit. That's just a miss year. But for him to come over, when I think of Kellen Moore, I think of running game, but I always felt that was forced on him. But when I think of his passing game, which I like for the most part, I don't think of a running quarterback being a part of that. And we can talk about Jalen Hurts and what he is, but Jalen Hurts, part of his offense is his running. I mean, as much as everybody talks about, in a playoff game, Lamar looks like Dak, it kind of reminded me of Jalen Hurts last week where he was just waiting too long. Just run. You had lanes. I just don't see Kellen Moore using what makes Jalen Hurts so good part of that. And I don't know. This was a weird move.
Yeah, it was a weird move. I just have to see it to believe it at this point. I don't know why they did that, but I guess we'll see what happens. I can't even say good luck to Kellen Moore because he's going to the Eagles.
Eagles, yeah.
So
it just feels like, again, like 2019 Eagles, 2018 Eagles, or more 2019. 2018, they still won a playoff game and beat the Bears. But it feels like that 2019 Eagles team where it's like, what are y'all doing? Y'all got to the Super Bowl in 2017. They won it, but y'all got to the Super Bowl last year. This year, again, as we talked about, in a down year, you friggin', you made the playoffs, and anybody would love to be. That's why I say about Dallas. As much as we bitch about Dallas, there's a lot of fan bases that would love to be 12-5 every year, and even getting beaten in the play. I don't know. I just feel like the Eagles are desperate. For the Chargers, I mean, whoever hired Jim Harbaugh, wonderful hire. Now, the question I have, I'm going to call it now. Justin Herbert's not their quarterback in 2 years.
Oh.
Because that's not what Jim Harbaugh does offensively. He does not want a drop back quarterback that's just, traditional. And Herbert moves around well, but you know what I mean. He's not going to run for 450, 500 yards. What Jim Harbaugh wants, and he's proven this over and over and over again, he wants a quarterback like him. Gritty, gutty, can run a bootleg, can scramble. Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick type. I think that's the one thing that we're going to see is Justin Herbert will not fit in the Chargers offense.
But that goes against reports that says he was very enamored when he met Justin Herbert. Like, he was unreal to him. I'm going to excuse that hand gesture, sir.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just going, hey, if Jim Harbaugh does a coaching philosophy flip, I love that, because we're just literally talking about that with Andy Reid. But I'm just saying his career at every coaching stop, whether it be University of San Diego, whether it be Stanford, whether it be Michigan or San Francisco, you said it best. He wants a run game. He wants a physical offense. He wants a quarterback that's going to stand in the pocket and get hit, but also scramble on, 2nd and 10 for 8 yards. He wants a quarterback that he can run pass option. I just don't see Herbert being any of that.
And he wants an elite kicker.
And you and that elite kicker.
Jake Moody, David Green-Akers, and then now Cameron Dicker.
Cameron Dick the Dicker. But I like the hire. Well, if Herbert stays and if Harbaugh lets Herbert and whoever the offense coordinator is do their thing, Herbert will be fine. I'm just saying, it feels like square peg round hole on that. Again,
I really don't think they have the personnel that Harbaugh desires.
Well,
unless he coaches them up.
Or unless he hires an offense coordinator and says, the keys are yours. You do your thing. Let me be the head coach. Because I do feel that he's more of the Jimmy Johnson type.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't get in the game plan, but yeah, Jim Harbaugh's not getting there on a Thursday and working on a guard on his, A techniques first step or anything like that. He's more standing back trying to figure out when I need to call certain plays and GM or what do you call it? CEO style of a head coach. So I could see it if he hands the keys off to somebody and says, hey, you go do your thing. But if you do that, why wouldn't you just keep Moore? Because Moore did feel like that they, at times when Herbert was healthy, they were a decent offense. Anyway, let's see. Antonio Pierce, Raiders. We both like that, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to watching them next season.
Bengals OC goes to the Titans. Brian Callahan, of course, that's what's his name? Bill Callahan's son. I mean, this was one of the most, okay, as much as I am not the biggest Mike Vrabel fan, this feels like a huge step back. Like, I don't get this one unless they are just saying, hey, we're completely tearing everything down. It's going to take us a few years. We're going to build with Will Levis as our guy, but because they have offensive line issues. They have defensive depth issues. I don't know. That hire is very meh to me. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Raheem Morris?
I think he will do better in his second go around as an
I
NFL coach. I was very impressed with what he did with the Rams, turning a bunch of no names on defense around into a very competitive defense, especially in the second half. So I'm curious to see what he does here with Atlanta with some actual talents, especially if they're able to retain a lot of the free agents they got this past offseason. They just need a quarterback. So,
are you a little shocked that a team that it feels like is two offensive players away from being a really good team? Are you shocked they went defensive coordinator?
No, only because most teams in the NFL, if they fire a coach that's an offensive-minded head coach, they'll go with a defensive-minded head coach. Or if they have a defensive-minded head coach and they fire them, they go with an offensive. Or if they go with a young and experienced, they go for
you do. Yeah. Or if you go with the players coach, the next time you go with the disciplinarian. I agree with you there. I just wonder, I wonder if they have an offensive guy in mind that they're like, hey, because this is how I believe. I believe as a head coach, you're going to win if you stick to whatever your side is, and whatever side you don't coach, you give them autonomy to do their thing. Whether I like what Dan Quinn does game to game, scheme to scheme, I like that Mike McCarthy, for the most part, says that's your side of the ball. You fix it. You make it great. If Raheem Morris does that and makes the right pick offensively, I think that they're perfectly going to be fine. Speaking of Dave Canales, head coach now of Carolina. Okay, that just with the Carolina owner, unless a coach just hits a home run right off the bat, whoever he hires to me is just going to be fodder to be fired in 3 years or 2 years.
Yeah, Canales had a good year coaching up Baker Mayfield, who had a career year.
Do you look at that offense and go, man, I want that coach to be my guy? Because I never felt, and honestly, I'll make the case if you look at the actual players on the field, and hey, Baker Mayfield, great job. But man, if they'd had a better quarterback, I mean, that offense should still be scoring 35 points a game.
Yeah. Yeah. They had Mike Evans having an amazing year at age 30.
Mike Evans, a Hall of Famer, by the way.
Yeah, easy, first ballot.
Got a ring, impactful, still has 3 or 4 years, barring injury. Free agent this year, so let's see where he goes. I would not hate Mike Evans coming back to Texas to play for the Texans, actually.
I was like, he ain't coming to the Cowboys. Probably the Texans.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't he come to Dallas? I don't think Mike Evans is going to be able to ask for top money, and Dallas needs a number 2. I don't think is Brandon Cook's a 1 year. I think he was just a 1 year thing, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's a 1 year guy.
And I like Brandon Cooks. And if they bring Brandon Cooks back, I'm perfectly fine with. But you and I talked about it when they signed Brandon Cooks. It's like, okay, you've got CeeDee Lamb, you've got Brandon Cooks, you've got Michael Gallup, and what are all 3 of those? Smallish wide receivers. I would love a 6'2" guy that you just 4 times a game you just throw the ball deep down the field to him.
The funny thing is, you think of Gallup as a tall guy.
You do, but he's not.
Yeah.
But he's so good. we can all knock his consistency, and that's something it is frustrating because again, he's the one guy in the playoff game that, god damn, if we'd had that Gallup all year, this offense might have even been any better. But yeah, you're right. You think of him as a big guy because he's so good in space. He never gets separation, which is his knock. He can't get separation, but man, you throw it within his area, and it always feels like he's bigger than the guy. But anyway, all right. So offensive coordinators, Browns go with Ken Dorsey. Wasn't Ken Dorsey with the Browns before?
He was with the Bills, and the Bills fired him.
No, I know that. God damn, I'm not that stupid. No, I mean like before. I meant like before. Like wasn't he like on staff? I feel like he was a Brown before as a coach.
I can look it up.
Anyway, I like this move.
I think he was never. He was a player for the Browns for 3 years.
That might be what I'm thinking about.
06 to 08.
That might be what's in my head. But no, I think that's a great hire. I think he's the type of guy, I think that they would have righted the ship last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I say last year, you know what I mean? This past year, I think they'd have righted the ship with him. They were just losing a lot of really tough games, really close in really weird ways. I like this move because I think look, the Joe Flacco thing is fun, but the Browns, they're on the precipice of, if they don't figure out Watson this year, they're about to go back to being where they were 10 years ago, 8 years ago, because that cap hit's just going to get bigger and bigger if he's not performing.
Yeah. The 2024 almost seems like a make or break year for Stefanski. I'm not sure if Dorsey's going to be calling plays. It might be
Stefanski. Like, I think Stefanski's got what he's done not only this year, but 2 years ago. I think it's a make or break for Deshaun Watson.
It could be for both of them, to be honest with you. I think there's a window here for the Browns to really compete for a championship. They had one of the best records in the AFC, just ended up in a 5th spot with the 4th-string quarterback. It was just a bad situation. This team could go far. And if Nick Chubb is back to where he was before, I'm not sure if he was. He's going to turn 28, 29 this coming season.
Second time that he's torn that knee.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what we're getting with him there, but if he returns anywhere close to what he used to be with a healthy shoulder for Watson, this could be a very dangerous team. They have one of the best lines in football, one of the best defenses in football, a solid kicker. So all 3 facets of the game are there for the Browns. It's just they got to go out and be good for 17 regular season games and get a pretty high seed and actually host the playoff game.
Yeah, get that home game. If the Browns are one of those teams that you feel like if they could secure the number 1 seed, they could beat everybody. Because that is one of the places that a home field advantage actually means something. The Bills keep Joe Brady, who they brought on after they fired Dorsey. I like that move perfectly fine. Again, Brady didn't get enough time in the Panthers. Matt Rule, I don't think, as much as I dislike Matt Rule as a head coach in the NFL, he didn't get enough time. So all that, I think Brady will do fine. The Bears go with Shane Waldron, Seahawks offensive coordinator. I think a very interesting move because I don't think the Bears offensively are built too different than those Seattle teams have been with Geno Smith and Metcalf and Lockett and a couple of good running backs. I thought they were going to be this year. I think next year we finally see the Bears break out and have a double-digit win season.
Yeah, we predicted they would win 7 games going into this season, and that's what they ended up winning. It's just the next progression is double-digit wins. I could easily see them winning 10 games next season even if they don't change anything. They have the number 1 overall pick in April.
2 picks in the top 10.
So I'm not sure what they're going to do with those. I don't know if they'll keep that first pick unless they really have someone in mind they want. I don't think it's going to be quarterback.
Marvin Harrison Jr. maybe?
Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think he'll be the first receiver taken number 1 overall since Keyshawn, maybe.
Yeah, Keyshawn. If you're, I can't think of the other guy, and once the draft gets close, and we will be having a live draft show in the studio again this year. That's going to be fun. I know there's a couple wide receivers that are at the top. Get hung up into where you draft them. If you're the Bears and you have the number 1, it's the same thing with the Cowboys and Russell Maryland. If that's the guy you want, just go get him. Don't fuck around unless you know for sure you can trade down and still get what you want.
Yeah,
just go get him. But yeah, I think next year is gonna first shocking thing I'm going to say about the 2024 season next year. I think the Lions will miss the playoffs, and I think the Lions could even finish third to last, but it's because the NFC North, I think next year is going to be really, really good. I think depending on what Minnesota does, I think Green Bay's built more for a longer term at the moment than the Lions are, because I still think the Lions had a couple career year guys. I like Jared Goff, but you still got to have that, but anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to that point. Bengals quarterback coach Dan Pitcher's staying with the Bengals off the smart. That's what good teams do. Yeah. If you have a good offense and you lose your offensive coordinator, stay in house. Just stay in house and you just keep things going. Defensively, the Patriots they named DeMarcus Covington. I don't know anything about him. I know he's a defensive line coach, and apparently he was well liked. I trust Jared Mayo.
Yeah,
I think the Patriots are going to swing back really, really quick. I don't know why. I could be totally wrong. But I feel like in 10 years, Jared Mayo has gone to a few Super Bowls. I don't think they're that far off.
And he won't even be 50 years old by then.
Exactly. And I think he's at an organization that will give him time to make mistakes. Falcons defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, he goes to the Jaguars. Okay. I don't know anything about him. Do you?
No, but the Falcons defense did pretty well for the most part. They kind of faltered the last couple of games, but for the season, they were causing turnovers, getting to the quarterback, partly due to the free agents they acquired. But Nielsen has something else to do with it as well.
And then the Bills defensive line coach Eric Washington goes to the Bears as a defensive coordinator. So obviously the Bears are in a win, or we've got new coaches again next year type of thing. That's what happens when your head coach hires two new coordinators. That's basically it's Nick Sirianni and the Eagles.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know how it works in the NFL, or in college, hell, there was a time when Jim Harbaugh had to fire his coordinators at Michigan because they weren't winning. But that's usually the next move when a coach is on the hot seat. But they have enough. They have enough cred that they get a couple extra years. Well, one of the things is always going to be, well, you got to change out your coaches, and that's what the Bears are going to do. All right. Anything else you want to say?
Nope. I'm looking forward to more coaching talk next week and previewing the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we're going to be doing 2 shows next week. We're going to We're going to preview the Super Bowl. We're going to have picks. We're going to go in depth, and then we're going to do a special episode on Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, and Pete Carroll, their impact on coaching, because I just take away the rings, take away the championships. The way the game is being played now, it's because of them and what they did, and the birth of where the game is now is a huge part of those 3. But that's going to do it for this week. Any questions, thoughts, or comments, email them to us, odtcnfl@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter @OutDrankU. Find us on Facebook. Just type in OutDrank the Coverage. And, of course, on YouTube @L4 Media. Until next time, he's intern Noah. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been OutDrank the Coverage, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions.